Good morning, everybody. It's Thursday, October 17th, and this is the AgYield War Room. I'm Dan Dempsey, and I'll be moderating today's session. As always, if you've got any questions or comments, please feel free to drop us a line in the chat area, and we'll be sure to get to it during the show. Overnight markets here, December corn down 1 3/4 at 403. November soybeans were down 7 at 973. And December Chicago wheat was down 2 3/4 at 582 1/4. This morning, the USDA had a couple of export sales announcements. 197,180 metric tons of corn to Mexico for 24. Also announced was 101,000 metric tons of corn to unknown destinations, also for 24. This morning's retail sales report was slightly better than estimates, up 0.4% on the month. And initial unemployment claims came back with a seasonally adjusted 241,000. That was down 19,000, and the estimates were looking for around 260,000. So positive economic news here this morning. Stock market's up about 100. We are through 12 of 23 days through the harvest price discovery period for crop insurance. Corn's currently sitting at $4.19, while soybeans are at $10.21. This morning, we're excited. We've got a special guest with us from Overton, Kansas, Doug Luther. He's the co-owner of Luther Family Farms. Welcome to the War Room here, Doug.
Hey, wrong state, man. Nebraska.
Overton, Nebraska.
Yes, sir.
Did I say Kansas?
I mean, yes, you did say Kansas. We're dry. We're not quite that dry. But
Reading's tough for me, Doug. I've got Nebraska written right here. I don't know. No, good to see you, Doug. Appreciate you jumping on this morning. We were talking a little bit before the show, but maybe fill us in on where you're at harvest-wise, what you've seen so far. And I know you said it's going pretty quick, and you guys will be wrapping up here shortly. So maybe give us just a little background there.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, guys. This is exciting to get to do this, and hopefully we got a good audience out there. As I talked earlier, harvest is progressing rather rapidly. We're probably 7 to 8 days from being finished with harvest, and I think the last time that we were done in the month of October was probably 2012, which everybody remembers what 2012 was. It was extremely dry that year. But the crop went in kind of late this year. A lot of corn wasn't planted until May. Soybeans weren't planted until May. So throughout the season, I would say that we're like a week to 10 days behind maturity-wise as the calendar progressed. But it seemed like the crop just really raced to the finish line this year. I mean, we started harvest right around the 15th of September, and here we are 5 weeks later. Not quite 5 weeks later, just a little over a month later, and the crop's just about out. So 5 weeks of harvest, super fast for us. Usually we start mid-September to around the 20th of September. We usually finish up that first week, second week in November. So happening pretty fast. The crop size, it's kind of been all over the place. The soybeans were not bad this year. Definitely below 22 and 21. Just looking at my numbers here, in 22, we were 79 bushel across the board, 21, 78 bushel. This year was right at 70 bushel. Those beans came out super fast this year. They were all, we started out 13, 14%. By the time we were done, we were harvesting 8% moisture soybeans. Corn crop, I mean, we switched over quickly. We haven't had any moisture here for probably 2 months. I think the last time we had significant or measurable rain was mid-August. So things dried down rapidly. We got back into the corn. The very first field that we harvested on corn was about 11%. I think that field went to 20. So if you do the math on that, I mean, 4% of water weight. So you're taking off 6% right off the top end. So, we're losing 14, 15 bushels just in water weight, which has made a huge difference this year. So it's always fun to harvest dry corn because you can get through it rapidly. But we also realize the effects of the dry crop and the water weight that we're losing too.
Sure. Guys, any questions for Doug?
Yeah, Doug, is it pretty much the same in your area? You think the next week to 10 days, most guys will be wrapping up?
Yes, the crop has come out super fast. I talked to one of the co-op guys around here, a guy that works for CHS, and he was telling me that ground piles are super small, and they're just, I mean, you look around the country and there's just hardly any crops left. So it's progressing rather fast. So yeah, I would say another week to 10 days, most of this crop's going to be out. But yeah, I gave you my soy numbers. So this year across the board, we're about 198. 2019, we're not 196. Super wet that year. Last year, 228, 22 or 223, 21, 243, and 2022, 219 bushels per acre. So definitely down from trend. We did have a lot of hail in this area, which I think at one time they said there was like 500,000 to 600,000 acres that were severely affected by. There's 2 different hailstorms, and I don't know, in between myself and others, harvested a lot of 70 bushel corn to 120 bushel corn. So that wasn't any fun, but it's out.
Yeah. And
But
you're
yeah,
just to be clear,
my conversations with people throughout Nebraska, this area, you go over to Phelps County, they did have a lot of hail go right through there. Phelps County, I would consider, if not the largest in Nebraska, but one of the largest corn producing counties in the state. And there, you know, like even the stuff that was not hailed, they were talking about like 230 bushel covers most of it. And typically those guys get 260, 270 bushels per acre. It seems like that anybody that applied fungicide this year, definitely getting some better yields. And I think maybe that just kind of helped prolong the fill process and then slow down that plant so it didn't race to the finish line.
and Doug, you're mostly irrigated, right? Correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Sure
96% of our acres are irrigated. So that kind of helps us with soybeans. I mean, soybeans, you get to August and we just turn the water on and just let it run. So that definitely helps us with our soybean yields year in and year out. But this year it didn't seem to matter with the corn. Those guys in Phelps County, they were harvesting 170, 180 bushel dry land corn. And so they were super excited to get into their irrigated corn. When they got into their irrigated corn, they were super disappointed.
Is that just you can't put enough moisture on when it's that dry?
I don't know. There's a lot of head scratching that's going on here. We're trying to, as we go from field to field, we're trying to figure out what we did right, what we did wrong, and try to fix this process going forward. I mean, because usually you think if you're planting corn in May around here, then more than likely you're probably not harvesting dry corn until the last part of October. But with no moisture, with warm temperatures, this crop has just progressed super fast.
We've heard that from a lot of people, I think, across all parts of the Corn Belt. It's just how fast things have dried down this year. So it's interesting that it's just consistent everywhere. One thing I think, just in our experience together, Doug, from a state perspective, you've had a pretty good just track record of trying to estimate where Nebraska ends up. And so, the last 3 reports, we had August at 194, September at 195, and October at 196, trending higher, 1 bushel a month. What's your perspective on that? Just how the USDA is calling Nebraska versus just your own personal opinion?
Well, I think that, when we were talking about the VIP event, obviously I didn't make it this year, but I think I was more in the camp of somewhere in the mid 180s, upper 180s. Talk to somebody that's in the eastern side of Nebraska. Their dryland corn was 220, 230. Good years, they'll raise 250 to 260 on those dryland acres. So I would say that there's probably some decent corn out there. I would say you go further west in Nebraska with the lack of rainfall and the quick maturing crop, and also the hailstorms that traveled through Nebraska. I would say that crop size, I have a tough time thinking that we're going to hit that 194, 195, wherever USDA is out. And I continue to have conversations. I know people throughout the Corn Belt. Talked to a guy in mid Iowa He said in their high areas that they're yielding fantastic, but they've got so many low areas and holes in the fields that they are, they're probably actually below last year's numbers. Talked to a guy in Michigan. His crop is not good. Sounds like he's got lots of tar spots. So once again, I think it boils down to management stuff. Obviously, weather plays a factor in that, but also management with your fungicides, nitrogen program, things like that. I think there's some good corn out there. I just don't know if we're going to hit that 183.6 or 183.7, wherever USDA is at right now.
It's certainly going to be an interesting next couple months as they continue to revise and get it locked in here. Guys, any other questions for Doug before we let him get back to it here today?
Doug, what are you seeing in the cash side? Basis movement at all in corn and beans? Are you guys, would you say around you wrapping up, beans are wrapped up for the most part, or a lot of corn going on right now? Is that affecting?
Soybeans are I would say 90% of the soybeans are out right now. There's probably still about 10% of the crop that has to come in. Basis numbers on soybeans, I think right now they're posting like 60 under, which is fairly typical for this time of year. Sometimes you'll get a 30 to 40 under. Obviously, just kind of depends on the year. The corn basis, before the crop started coming in, I think posting on September contract, I think they were 15 to 20 over. And then moving into the December contract, they were, everybody was all the way from option to minus 10, 15, just depending on where they were located at. But consensus is that basis is going to take off here shortly, be my guess. The crop comes in, and I think that there's not enough corn. Like, we're probably in a corn deficit area. I don't think there's enough for the rail. There's not enough for the ethanol plants, the cattle feeders. There's not enough corn to go around in this area. And obviously it's a pretty good sized area that 600,000 acres is pretty big impact in this area.
Yeah, it seems like you go north or south of you. Just not a lot of people out your way caught a lot of rain.
Right. Yeah. Then you travel down into Kansas, and they had a good looking crop early, but got super dry there at the end. So I think that there's going to be some corn that has to travel down into Kansas too.
Yeah, even our stuff, we're getting into our later planted corn, and it's 30 bushels lower than our early planted stuff. So still a record, but the early stuff was phenomenal, way over a record. And I kind of hearing more of that in the state too, just the later planted stuff.
Phantom yield loss. It's a real thing.
Yeah. Just can't stay dry that long and not lose some
Right.
bushels. So
Right.
Well, very good, Doug. We certainly appreciate you taking the time this morning to come on. It was good stuff there, and we will definitely be in touch down the road here.
Guys, thank you.
thank you, Doug.
Yeah, thanks,
All right,
Doug.
Doug. Have a good day. All right, guys. Doug Luther from Overton, Nebraska. It was good stuff. A couple of thoughts as we go in this morning. We did have an online question come on. Just your thoughts. Farmers. We've talked about it a couple of times. Maybe selling beans, storing corn. What's the overall opinion you think as we sit here today with what they're doing with crop?
Yeah, I think you're seeing the need to raise cash is getting a lot of beans to sell first, and they're going to store the corn, even though in a lot of cases the cash carry is better for beans. And so, I think the spreads reflect that as well, and that's part of the reason why there's such a big carry in beans. But we're also hearing a lot of just selling corn too, right? Rather than putting it on DP or a lot of times you get to harvest low period, and we're testing sub $4 cash corn in a lot of cases. The desire to try to get something more out of it is still very high, but we're hearing directly from delivery points saying they're seeing a lot of selling over the scales now versus what they saw last year. And you think about what happened last year, end of 2023, you still had a lot of cash that was raised in 22 and early 2023. We're still selling well above $7 cash corn in JFM 2023. So the need to raise cash last fall is a much different situation than need to raise cash this fall. So I think that's driving some of those extra sales of both products right now.
Well, to that point, I think you can see it. Just look at commitment of traders. Open interest keeps going up. Funds keep covering short positions and the market's falling. So I think you can see it in a lot of different ways. And it makes sense too with, you don't have to dry the corn. You don't have to pay for commercial drying. You can just take it right into town. And basis levels are relatively good. So I think a lot of what is happening right now actually makes a lot of sense. If you just look at the last couple months, kind of rally into the middle of crop insurance or beginning of crop insurance, kind of the levels where it got attractive again, and you've got a record fast harvest pace. So
yeah, well, the cost of capital, right? The cost of capital, the cost of storage has gone up, and obviously recency bias that Dustin talks about a lot, right? It did not work out so well last year. So I think all those things together were probably influencing the farmer, and you had a nice little rally to Dustin's point, right? So yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, now we're breaking, corn specifically, we're breaking back to that $4 level where we're picking up a lot of demand. So these are all kind of really make sense to me what's happening here. So I think you got to get past the second half of harvest, and we'll see what storage issues we run into, or just, we're going to be breakneck speed, for the next week or 10 days. So maybe you can find some kind of a fair price here, in the next 2 weeks. I think there's gonna be enough headwinds to keep both markets on the defensive. But if we keep seeing these kind of big demand numbers, and we will, if we keep going lower and lower, hopefully we're bringing some kind of equilibrium here to these markets.
Oh, very good. We just came into the open here, Ryland. Maybe just a few thoughts on cattle as we start the day.
Yeah, just saw kind of inside action in the live market. I think everybody was kind of waiting for a little bit more cash news, and we did see a little bit. Looked like there was a little bit of trade in Iowa, 186.5. So it's kind of disappointing overall. So it kind of just soured the expectation. I mean, like, beef prices just keep on going up here. So there's been a lot of just optimism, I think, overall, just as far as cash is leaning. But we are starting to see these deliveries like really pick up. So like we saw another 6 loads delivered, so a total of 26. And I think just in general, it's kind of, the expectation now is the question is, after we're seeing these deliveries, is cash going to be a little bit weaker than expected, just because of this demand that we're seeing, or at least how the delivery process works. So it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So I think people are scratching their heads seeing how this is going to shape up. So I think something to keep an eye on. But overall, we tested support levels, kind of held them right now. So I think there's going to be, maybe a little bit of technical support. I didn't see much on the export side here to really have too strong an opinion. So in general, it's just kind of waiting to see how cash actually shapes up. And it looked like bids were around 183 to about 188 on the hog side. Another sharp rally right back to the highs. So I think just in general, producers are getting just great opportunities, and it's probably starting to look a little bit further and further out. So I think we're probably going to start running into some of that hedge pressure. Just overall, it just seems like the demand for futures is really strong. Cash was up a little bit, cutout was up a little bit, but not much to really spur that kind of support. It just kind of feels like overall we're seeing quite a bit of underlying demand in the future side of things, a lot of technical support, a lot of macro support. So overall, I think on the export side of the market, that demand's really kind of fueling this fire a little bit. We had 50,600 metric tons on the pork side of things. So that was up 17% from the previous week. So still pretty good demand here. So overall, it's kind of hard to fight the trend. But I think as a producer, you just kind of got to look at it and look at forward margins and see what they're looking like, and maybe take a little bit of action.
Very good. Appreciate the update. We've got open markets here. December corn down 3 1/4 right now, 401.5. November soybeans are down 7.5 at 972 3/4. And December Chicago wheat is down 2 3/4 at 582 1/4. A couple things to point out. We will have export sales out tomorrow morning. They're delayed 1 day due to Monday's holiday. That'll be out at 7:30 Central tomorrow. We'll take a look at those and talk about them in the More Room. We also have Fun Fact Friday, so a great way to segue into the weekend. Never know what we're going to get there, but Fun Fact Friday will be tomorrow, so be sure to tune in. Appreciate everybody that tunes in on a daily basis. If you wouldn't mind, throw us a like or subscribe. Certainly helps us out. And also we'll keep you up to speed on everything AgYield. So thanks again to everybody that tunes in on a daily basis. We are doing this every day that the markets are open at 8:15 Central Time. We stream it live on X, Facebook Live, and YouTube Live, 8:15 Central Time. Appreciate the thoughts and comments here this morning, guys. A good conversation. Hope everybody has a great day, and we look forward to talking to you again tomorrow.
The War Room is proudly presented by AgYield. For over 50 years, the AgYield team has provided grain marketing and risk management solutions for growers across the country. Our veteran consultants harness cutting-edge technologies to pinpoint risk, optimize market performance, and protect your farm's profitability. Discover a new approach to farm revenue management at agyield.com.
Hey guys, Jack here. Be sure to support the show by hitting the like button, leaving us a comment, and subscribing to the channel for all the latest updates. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.